The stars looked different today. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the window of Earth's newest space station, watching ships move between the planets like tiny lights in the darkness. 3 years ago, humans had only dreamed of traveling between stars. Now they had built stations around Mars and were planning colonies on distant worlds. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and quiet eyes. He had spent 40 years in the Earth Navy, fighting in 3 wars and keeping peace in a dozen more. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The alarm rang through the station. Morrison turned from the window and walked quickly to the command center. His officers were already at their posts, watching screens full of data and numbers. "What do we have?" Morrison asked. Captain Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her station. She was young but smart, and Morrison trusted her judgment. "Sir, we have an unknown ship approaching from the outer system. It's big. Really big." Morrison looked at the main screen. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was long and silver, with curves that seemed to flow like water. Strange lights pulsed along its sides, and it moved without any visible engines. "Size estimate?" Morrison asked. 2 kilometers long, sir. Maybe more. It's hard to get exact readings. The ship seems to bend our sensors somehow. Dr. Alex Turner entered the command center. He was the station's science officer, a thin man who always looked worried. Today he looked more worried than usual. "Admiral, I've been studying the readings. This ship uses technology we don't understand. The energy patterns are completely alien." Morrison nodded. "Alien? I was hoping we wouldn't have to use that word so soon." For months, Turner's team had been finding strange signals in space, radio waves that didn't come from human sources, energy readings that made no sense. Everyone knew this day would come, but they had hoped for more time to prepare. "Are they talking to us?" Morrison asked. Rodriguez checked her equipment. "Yes, sir. They're sending a message on multiple frequencies. It's being translated by the computer." "Put it through." The main screen changed. Instead of the silver ship, they now saw a face. It was not human. The creature had blue skin and 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on its head. Its mouth was small, and when it spoke, the words came from a mechanical voice. "Greetings, inhabitants of the 3rd planet. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council Dominion. I come with an official message from the ruling powers of this galaxy." Morrison stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Command. We welcome peaceful contact." Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful contact. How quaint. Small creature, you misunderstand the situation. This is not a request for contact. This is notification of new galactic law." The alien's 4 eyes focused on Morrison. "Your species has achieved faster than light travel. This triggers certain requirements under council law. You must now choose your status within our civilization." "What kind of status?" Morrison asked, though he already didn't like where this was going. "You may become a client species under council protection. You will provide tribute, accept technology restrictions, and limit your expansion as directed. In return, we will protect you from hostile forces and allow you continued existence." Turner whispered to Morrison. "Sir, client species sounds like slavery with extra steps." Morrison nodded slightly. "And if we refuse?" Zethkar's expression didn't change, but somehow he seemed pleased by the question. "Then you will be classified as a rogue civilization and corrected accordingly. The Council has 12 member species and hundreds of client worlds. Resistance is not only futile, it is unthinkable." Morrison had been in enough negotiations to recognize a threat when he heard one. "We'll need time to consider this offer. It is not an offer, it is law. However, I am feeling generous today. You have 1 solar cycle to make your choice. Comply or be corrected." The screen went dark. The silver ship began to turn away from Earth, preparing to leave the system. Morrison looked around the command center. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. He had faced enemy fleets before, but never anything like this. "Get me President Williams on the emergency channel," Morrison said, "and contact General Carter, Admiral Way, And Marshal Petrov. We need to talk. Rodriguez worked at her station. Sir, should I alert the other stations? Not yet. Let's see what Washington says first. Morrison paused. But start running diagnostics on all our defensive systems and get me everything we know about that ship. Turner was already pulling up data on his tablet. Admiral, based on what I saw, their technology is far ahead of ours. That ship could probably destroy this entire station without breaking a sweat. Probably, Morrison agreed. But notice what our new friend said. They have hundreds of client species. That means they're used to easy victories. They're used to people giving up without a fight. Captain Rodriguez looked up from her station. Sir, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Morrison smiled for the first time since the alien had appeared. I'm thinking that Ambassador Zethkar has never met humans before. He has no idea what he's dealing with. What do you mean, sir? He sees Earth as another primitive world ready to surrender. He doesn't see the species that fought 2 world wars in 30 years. He doesn't see the people who turned their entire planet into a weapons factory when they had to. Morrison walked back to the window and looked out at the stars. He thinks we're just another easy conquest. But humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. Turner joined him at the window. You think we can actually fight them? I think they have no idea what human warfare looks like. They expect formal surrender from a primitive species. They're going to get something very different. Morrison turned back to his officers. Rodriguez, I want every piece of sensor data from that encounter sent to Strategic Command. Turner, start analyzing their technology. Look for weaknesses. Sir, Rodriguez said, what if they're too advanced? What if we really can't fight them? Morrison looked at her with the same calm eyes that had faced down enemy admirals in 3 different wars. Then we'll find another way. Humans are very good at finding other ways. The silver ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying Ambassador Zethkar back to the Galactic Council. He was confident in humanity's coming surrender. After all, no species had ever refused council law. But Zethkar had made a crucial mistake. He had given humans time to prepare, and humans, when given time to prepare for war, became very dangerous indeed. President Karen Williams sat at the head of the long table in the White House Situation Room. Around her were the most powerful military leaders on Earth. The room was silent except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional shuffle of papers. General Rick Carter spoke first. He was a big man with scarred hands from his early days as a soldier. Madam President, we've reviewed Admiral Morrison's report. This council expects us to become their slaves. That's putting it bluntly, but yes, Williams replied. She looked tired. In 2 days, she had aged 5 years. What are our options? Marshal Elena Petrov leaned forward. She commanded the European Federation forces and had never lost a battle. We fight. It's that simple. Admiral Chen Wei shook his head. Elena, their ship was 2 kilometers long. Our biggest warship is 300 meters. We're talking about technology that's centuries ahead of ours. So was the British Navy compared to the American colonists, Carter said. David beat Goliath. It can be done. Dr. Turner entered the room carrying a thick folder. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he looked excited. I have the analysis you requested, Madam President. What did you find, Alex? Turner opened his folder and spread papers across the table. The good news is that their technology isn't magic. It follows rules we can understand. The bad news is that it's much more advanced than ours. How much more advanced? Williams asked. Their energy systems are about 200 years ahead. Their materials science is maybe 300 years ahead. But here's the interesting part. Turner pointed to a chart. Their ship design is beautiful but inefficient. It's built for show, not for war. General Carter looked at the papers. What do you mean? I mean they've been bullying primitive civilizations for so long that they've forgotten how to build real warships. Look at this. Turner showed them a diagram. The ship has huge windows, decorative curves, and energy systems spread throughout the hull. No human military engineer would design something like that. Admiral Wei studied the diagram. You're right. This ship is designed to look impressive, not to survive battle damage. Exactly. And there's more. Turner pulled out another paper. I analyzed their communication patterns. The ambassador was surprised when Admiral Morrison didn't immediately surrender. They've never dealt with resistance before. President Williams stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington, D.C. Somewhere up there, alien ships might be preparing to attack her world. What about their weapons, she asked. Energy-based, very powerful, but single-target focused. They're designed to destroy cities from orbit, not to fight other spaceships. Turner paused. Madam President, I don't think they've fought a real war in centuries. Marshal Petrov smiled. While we've been fighting real wars every few decades, for our entire history. Colonel Amy Bennett entered the room. She was small and quiet, but everyone knew she commanded the most dangerous soldiers on Earth. Sorry I'm late. I was reviewing our special operations capabilities. What's your assessment, Amy? Williams asked. We have advantages they don't expect. Our psychological profiles suggest they think in terms of honor and formal combat. They've probably never faced guerrilla warfare, sabotage, or asymmetric tactics. General Carter nodded. Amy's right. They sent one ambassador to make demands. That tells us they're used to diplomatic solutions. They expect us to surrender after a show of force. What if we don't surrender? Williams asked. Then they'll probably send a military force to make us surrender, Admiral Way said. The question is, can we make that expensive enough that they decide we're not worth the trouble? Colonel Bennett opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. I've been working on that assumption. We can't match their technology, but we can make their lives very difficult. How? Asymmetric warfare, hit-and-run tactics, make them fight the kind of war they've never seen before. Bennett showed them her tablet. Their client species probably fight like medieval knights. Honor duels. And formal battles, we fight like pirates. Turner looked excited. That could work. If they're not used to unconventional tactics, we might be able to surprise them. President Williams returned to her seat. Let's say we decide to fight. What do we need? General Carter pulled out his own papers. Time, first of all. We need to mobilize everything we have. This isn't a regional conflict, it's a species survival scenario. How much time do we have? The ambassador gave us 1 day to decide, but even if we surrender, they'll probably send ships to enforce their terms. That gives us maybe a week before we see their military. Admiral Way spoke up. We need to assume they're already sending ships. Military commanders don't wait for diplomacy to fail. So what's the plan? Williams asked. Colonel Bennett stood up. We activate every defense protocol we have. Orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, everything. But more importantly, we change the rules of engagement. What do you mean? They expect us to meet them in open battle, ship against ship. Instead, we make them fight for every kilometer of space. We use stealth, deception, and hit-and-run attacks. We make this so expensive that other species think twice about challenging us. Marshal Petrov nodded. It's risky, but it might work. The key is making them respect us, not just fear us. President Williams looked around the table. Are we all in agreement? We reject their ultimatum and prepare for war? One by one. Each military leader nodded. Then it's decided. Williams picked up her secure phone. Get me the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs, and the heads of all space commands. We're going to need everyone for this. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Turner approached General Carter. Rick, do you really think we can win this? Carter looked at him with steady eyes. Alex, they made one critical mistake. They gave humans time to prepare for war. And humans, when we prepare for war, become very creative. What do you mean? I mean, they're about to discover what happens when you threaten a species that spent its entire evolution fighting everything on its planet, including each other. They think they're dealing with another primitive civilization. They're actually dealing with the most successful predator species in Earth's history. Turner smiled for the first time in days. When you put it that way, I almost feel sorry for them. Don't, Carter replied. They chose this fight. Now they're going to learn why humans don't make good slaves. Across the world, similar meetings were taking place. Military bases went to full alert. Factories began retooling for wartime. Production Scientists worked around the clock to find weaknesses in alien technology. The Galactic Council had made their ultimatum expecting quick surrender. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. Humanity was preparing for war, and humans had been very good at war for a very long time. Ambassador Zethkar would return expecting submission. He was going to get something entirely different. War leader Vraktul stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the screen. Behind him, 30 massive warships followed in perfect formation. Each ship was over a kilometer long, armed with weapons that could destroy cities from space. Vraktul was proud of his record. 17 client worlds had surrendered to him without firing a shot. His ships were so powerful that most species gave up the moment they saw them. Today would be number 18. War leader. His communications officer said, "We are receiving a message from the human planet." "Put it through," Vraktul replied. He expected the usual message of surrender. The screen showed a human face. The creature was smaller than Vraktul, with brown skin and calm eyes. "This is Captain Danny Martinez of the Earth Defense Ship Freedom. You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave immediately." Vraktul laughed. "Small creature, I am War Leader Vraktul of the Galactic Council Fleet. You will surrender your planet or we will take it by force." "I don't think so," Martinez replied. "This is your final warning. Leave now or we will defend ourselves." The human ships were pathetic. Vraktul counted only 20 vessels, each less than half the size of his smallest warship. They looked like toys, compared to his mighty fleet. "Fire a warning shot at their lead ship," Vraktul ordered. "Show them our power." The main cannon of his flagship charged with energy. A beam of pure destruction lanced across space toward the human ship called Freedom. It was enough energy to vaporize a mountain. The beam struck the human ship and disappeared. The Freedom didn't even shake. "What?" Vraktul stared at the screen. "Fire again." 3 more energy beams struck the human ship. All of them were absorbed by some kind of shielding system. The Freedom's captain appeared on screen again. "Is that all you've got?" Martinez asked. "Our turn." The human ships suddenly broke formation. Instead of staying in neat lines like civilized fleets, they scattered in all directions. Vraktul had never seen anything like it. "What are they doing?" he asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, war leader. They appear to be surrounding us." Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh piloted his ship, the Liberty, around the alien fleet at high speed. The enemy ships were huge and powerful, but they moved like sleeping giants. His ship was small and fast, built for exactly this kind of fight. "Target, their sensor arrays," Walsh told his weapons officer, Ensign Julie Roberts. "Let's see how well they fight when they're blind." The Liberty fired a spread of kinetic missiles. Unlike the aliens' energy weapons, these were simple metal projectiles moving at incredible speed. The alien ship's energy shields were designed to stop energy beams, not solid objects. The missiles punched through the shields and destroyed the sensor dome on top of the alien flagship. Vraktil's bridge went dark for a moment as backup systems kicked in. "Report," Vraktil shouted. "Sensors damaged. The humans are using primitive projectile weapons. Our shields weren't designed for such attacks." All around the alien fleet, human ships were firing missiles and kinetic rounds. The weapons were simple but effective. Where alien energy beams had failed to hurt human shields, human bullets and missiles were tearing into alien ships. Captain Martinez watched the battle from the Freedom's bridge. The plan was working perfectly. "Electronic warfare now," he ordered. Every human ship began broadcasting on the frequencies the aliens used for communication. But instead of messages, they sent computer viruses and jamming signals. The alien fleet's coordination began to break down as ships lost contact with each other. Vraktil's communications officer looked panicked. "War leader, we're losing contact with the fleet. The humans are jamming our signals with some kind of electronic attack." "How is that possible? Their technology is primitive." What Vraktul didn't understand was that human technology was designed differently. The aliens had spent centuries building bigger and more powerful weapons. Humans had spent centuries learning to fight dirty. The battle became chaos. Human ships darted between the alien vessels like angry wasps, firing missiles and disappearing, before the aliens could respond. The alien ships, designed for formal combat, couldn't adjust to this new kind of warfare. Commander Rachel Stone led a group of 3 human ships in a coordinated attack on an alien cruiser. Her ships approached, from 3 different directions, firing missiles at the same target. The alien ship's weapons could only face one direction at a time. "Hit their engines," Stone ordered. "Let's see how they like being sitting ducks." The missiles found their mark. The alien cruiser's main engines exploded, leaving the ship drifting helplessly in space. On the alien flagship, Vraktul watched his perfect formation fall apart. Half his ships were damaged or disabled. The humans were using tactics he had never seen before. "War leader," his tactical officer said, "recommend we withdraw and regroup." Withdraw? Vraktul couldn't believe what he was hearing. "We have never withdrawn from primitive species." Another explosion shook his ship as human missiles found their target. The lights flickered, and smoke began to fill the bridge. Captain Martinez appeared on the main screen again. His ship was undamaged, still protected by shields that somehow stopped energy weapons while letting kinetic rounds pass through. "War leader Vraktul," Martinez said, "this is your chance to leave. Take your remaining ships and go home. Don't make us destroy you all." Vraktul looked around his damaged bridge. His fleet was in ruins. Ships that had conquered 17 worlds were being defeated by creatures barely out of their own solar system. "This is impossible," he whispered. "War leader," his navigation officer said urgently. "More human ships are approaching from the outer system. If we don't leave now, we'll be trapped." Admiral Morrison's reinforcements were arriving right on schedule. 12 more human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and moved to surround what was left of the alien fleet. Vraktul made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships retreat. Emergency jump to Council space." The remaining alien ships began to disappear as they entered faster-than-light travel. In minutes, the mighty fleet that had conquered 17 worlds was running away from Earth. On the Freedom's bridge, Captain Martinez turned to his crew. "Damage report." "Minor hull damage to 3 ships," Roberts reported. "No casualties." Martinez nodded. The battle had lasted 30 minutes. In that time, humanity had proven something important. They could fight advanced aliens and win. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "All ships, excellent work, but this is just the beginning. They'll be back with more ships and better preparation." Lieutenant Commander Walsh responded from the Liberty. "Let them come, sir. We'll be ready." As the human fleet regrouped around Earth, a message was already traveling at light speed toward the Galactic Council. Vraktel's emergency transmission would reach the Council in days, carrying news that would shock 12 civilizations. For the first time in their history, a Council fleet had been defeated by a primitive species. The humans had done something impossible. They had changed the rules of galactic warfare in 30 minutes. The Council would not be pleased. But more importantly, they would not understand. How could creatures barely capable of interplanetary travel defeat technology centuries more advanced? The answer was simple. The aliens had forgotten how to fight. Humans never had. The Grand Council chamber had never seen such anger. Representatives from 12 civilizations sat around the massive circular table, their voices raised in fury and disbelief. The holographic display in the center showed the wreckage of Vraktel's fleet floating in Earth's solar system. Council leader Zendar slammed his four-fingered hand on the table. "This is impossible. How can primitive mammals defeat our greatest war fleet?" Vraktul stood in the center of the chamber, his head lowered. In shame, burns covered half his face from the battle damage to his ship. "Honored Council, they fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They use no honor, no formal tactics. They attack like wild beasts." "You had 30 ships," shouted Representative Kolthak. 30 ships that have conquered civilizations. Their weapons are primitive but effective," Vraktul replied. They use solid projectiles that pass through our energy shields. They jam our communications. They attack from all directions. At once, Ambassador Zethkar spoke from his seat. I warned you they were different. The human admiral showed no fear when I delivered our ultimatum. Different or not, they are still primitives, Zendar said. We will send the Grand Fleet. 300 ships. Let's see them fight that. While the Council argued, humanity was preparing for exactly that possibility. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Roger Thompson watched his sensors from the bridge of his stealth ship. The Phantom was invisible to most detection systems, built specifically for reconnaissance missions. Captain, his communications officer whispered, we're receiving signals from the Nexus Point. Massive energy signatures. Thompson nodded. The Nexus Point was the Council's main military base located in a star system 50 light-years from Earth. Human intelligence had been watching it for weeks. How many ships? Thompson asked. Computer estimates 300 vessels, sir. All of them bigger than the ships we just fought. Thompson smiled grimly. Send the data to Strategic Command. Tell them the Grand Fleet is mobilizing. Back on Earth, President Williams received the intelligence report in her underground command bunker. The surface cities had been evacuated, and the planet was preparing for total war. 300 ships, General Carter said, looking at the data. They're not taking any chances this time. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Fisher entered the briefing room. She commanded the Special Operations Division, and her teams had been very busy. Madam President, Operation Deep Strike is ready to begin. Tell me about it, Williams said. Fisher activated a star map showing the local region of the galaxy. We've identified 12 Council worlds within striking distance of Earth. My teams have been infiltrating their systems for weeks. Infiltrating how? Small stealth ships carrying commando teams. We're not there to cause damage. We're there to gather intelligence and create chaos when the time comes. Admiral Morrison joined the briefing by video link from his command ship. Nancy's people have done incredible work. We now know more about Council military capabilities than they know about ours. Fisher continued her briefing. The Council species are individually powerful, but they've become soft. They've been living off tribute from client worlds for so long that they've forgotten how to fight a real war. What did you find? Williams asked. Their military doctrine is completely outdated. They fight formal battles with honor codes and rules of engagement. They've never faced psychological warfare, guerrilla tactics, or total war strategies. General Carter studied the star map. What about their home worlds? Poorly defended. They rely on their fleets for protection. If we can get past their ships, their planets are sitting ducks. Williams looked at the assembled officers. Are you suggesting we attack their homeworlds? No, ma'am, Fisher replied. I'm suggesting we make them think we might. Psychological warfare is about making the enemy afraid of what you could do, not what you will do. Meanwhile, Major Pete Davis was overseeing the construction of the most ambitious defensive system in human history. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a fortress. Weapons platforms were built inside asteroids themselves, invisible until they fired. Status report, Davis said to his engineering team. 200 platforms completed and operational, Chief Engineer Bill Parker replied. Each one has enough firepower to take out a Council cruiser. Davis looked out at the asteroid field. To alien sensors, it would look like empty space with floating rocks. They would never suspect that each rock contained a weapon system capable of destroying their ships. Commander Rachel Stone was preparing for her own mission. Her deep space patrol ships had been modified with the most advanced stealth technology humans could build. Remember, Stone told her squadron leaders, we don't engage their main fleet directly. We harass them for weeks before they reach Earth. Hit their supply ships, attack their scouts, make them paranoid and exhausted. Lieutenant Commander Walsh raised his hand. What if they send escorts for their supply ships? Then we hit the escorts too, Stone replied. The goal is to make them fight a running battle all the way to Earth. By the time they get here, they should be tired, angry, and making mistakes. Dr. Turner was working on a different kind of preparation. His laboratory had been studying captured alien technology from the battle, and he had made important discoveries. Their computer systems are incredibly sophisticated but poorly protected, Turner explained to a group of military programmers. They've never faced computer viruses or electronic warfare. Can we hack their systems? Asked software engineer Maria Lopez. Better than that. We can create viruses that will spread through their entire fleet. Imagine their weapon systems shutting down in the middle of battle, or their navigation computers giving false readings. The preparations were massive. Every human military base, every space station, every ship was involved. Earth's entire industrial capacity had been converted to war production. The planet that had once fought itself was now united against an external threat. In his private office, Admiral Morrison reviewed the battle plans one final time. The strategy was unlike anything in military history. Instead of meeting the enemy in open battle, humanity would fight a war of movement, deception, and exhaustion. Sir, Captain Martinez entered with the latest intelligence reports. The Grand Fleet has begun moving toward Earth. Morrison nodded. How long until they arrive? 3 weeks, sir. Maybe less if they push their engines. That's enough time. Signal all units. Operation Sovereign Shield is now active. Across human space, the plan began to unfold. Stealth ships moved to intercept the alien fleet. Commando teams on distant worlds prepared to create diversions. The asteroid belt weapons came online. But the most important preparation was psychological. Humanity was no longer the surprised victim of an alien ultimatum. They were a species that had declared war on a galactic empire, and they intended to win. The Council was sending their Grand Fleet expecting an easy victory over a primitive world. They were about to discover that humans had spent 3 weeks preparing for total war. And humans, when they prepared for total war, became something that the galaxy had never seen before. The Grand Fleet would arrive at Earth in 3 weeks. They would find a fortress system defended by people who refused to surrender, commanded by officers who had studied every aspect of Council warfare, and protected by weapons systems that the Council couldn't detect. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after the first battle, Ambassador Zethkar found himself in a position he had never imagined. Instead of accepting humanity's surrender, he was sitting across from Admiral Morrison aboard a human warship, asking for peace. The meeting room aboard the Earth Defense Ship Constitution was simple and functional. No decorative curves or impressive displays like Council ships. Just a plain table, chairs, and humans who looked very tired but very determined. Your terms? Zethkar asked quietly. His 4 eyes no longer held the arrogance they had shown during first contact. Admiral Morrison looked older than he had 6 months ago. The war had aged all of them. But his voice was steady as he spoke. Recognition of human sovereignty over all claimed territories. Full diplomatic status within the Council structure. Reparations for the unprovoked attacks on our space. The other Council representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Representative Kolthak spoke with difficulty. You ask us to treat you as equals. We're not asking, General Bennett replied. She had been promoted after leading the ground assault on 3 Council worlds. We're telling you how this ends. The war had not gone as the Council expected. Their grand fleet of 300 ships had reached Earth's solar system, but they had never reached Earth itself. The human strategy had been unlike anything in galactic history. Commander Stone's deep space raiders had attacked the Grand Fleet for weeks during their journey. Small human ships appeared from nowhere, destroyed supply vessels, and vanished before the aliens could respond. The mighty fleet arrived at Earth exhausted, paranoid, and short on supplies. Then they encountered the asteroid belt. What looked like empty space filled with rocks turned out to be the largest weapons platform ever built. Hidden guns opened fire from every direction. The Grand Fleet found itself trapped in a crossfire that came from everywhere and nowhere. The battle had lasted 3 months. Not 3 hours like traditional space battles, but 3 months of constant fighting. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Alien vessels were destroyed by weapons they couldn't even see. Every time the Council fleet tried to advance toward Earth, they faced new surprises. The final blow came when Lieutenant Colonel Fisher's commando teams activated their sabotage missions. Across 12 Council worlds, communication systems failed, power grids went down, and military bases suffered mysterious explosions. The Council found themselves fighting a war on their own territory, while their main fleet was trapped at Earth. How? Council leader Zendar asked. How did primitives defeat our greatest military force? Dr. Turner, now Earth's first xenodiplomat, answered with the patience of a teacher. You made several assumptions that turned out to be wrong. You assumed we would fight the same way your other enemies fought. You assumed we would surrender after a show of force. You assumed we thought the same way you do. But your technology is inferior, Zendar protested. In some ways, yes, Turner agreed. Your energy weapons are more powerful than ours. Your ships are bigger and more advanced. But you forgot something important. What? Technology doesn't win wars. People win wars. And humans have been fighting wars since before we invented the wheel. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. Your species conquered the galaxy by being stronger than everyone else? You never learned to be smarter than everyone else. When you met a species that was smarter, your advantages didn't matter. The truth was painful for the Council to accept. Humanity had won not through superior technology, but through superior thinking. Human tactics had been unpredictable, adaptable, and ruthless in a way that civilized species had forgotten. What happens now? Zethkar asked. President Williams, attending the meeting by video link, answered from Earth. Now we establish new rules. The age of forced client states is over. Any species that wants to join the galactic community does so by choice, not by conquest. And if some council members refuse these terms, Kolthak asked. General Bennett smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then they can ask the Dominion Fourth Fleet how well that worked out. The Dominion Fourth Fleet no longer existed. It had been destroyed by Captain Martinez's task force in a battle that lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete surrender of the Dominion home system. Furthermore, Admiral Morrison continued, humanity is establishing a new military doctrine for the galaxy. Any species that attacks another without provocation will face the combined response of all free worlds. You're creating an alliance, Zendar realized. We're creating a defense pact, Williams corrected. 17 species have already requested human military advisors. Apparently, word has spread about our unconventional tactics. The 17 species were former client worlds that had rebelled during the war. With human support, they had thrown off council rule and declared independence. The galaxy was changing, and the council could either change with it or be left behind. Turner pulled out a datapad and placed it on the table. These are the technical exchange protocols. Humanity is willing to share certain technologies and establish trade relations, but only as equals. What kind of technologies? Zethkar asked. Defensive systems mostly. Stealth technology, electronic warfare, asymmetric tactics, the kind of things that help smaller civilizations defend themselves against larger ones. The message was clear. Humanity was not just protecting itself, it was changing the balance of power in the galaxy. The strong could no longer simply take what they wanted from the weak. Admiral Morrison stood up. The war is over. You can accept these terms and begin a new relationship with humanity, or you can continue fighting and see what happens. The council representatives looked at each other. They had arrived expecting to dictate terms to a defeated primitive species. Instead, they were being offered a chance to surrender with dignity. We accept, Zendar said finally. The council agrees to these terms. Williams smiled from the screen. Excellent. Welcome to the new galactic order. As the meeting ended and the council representatives prepared to return to their ships, Zethkar approached Admiral Morrison privately. Admiral, I must ask, how did you know we would attack after our first meeting? Morrison looked at him with the same calm eyes that had faced the original ultimatum. Because we know what bullies do when someone stands up to them. They get angry and try to prove their strength. And you were ready for that? Ambassador, humanity has been preparing for war since we first looked at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. When you gave us an ultimatum, you didn't just threaten our freedom. You confirmed our worst fears about what we might find in the galaxy. Zethkar thought about this. So you were never going to surrender? Never, Morrison confirmed. Humans don't make good slaves. We've tried it a few times in our history, and it never works out well for the people trying to keep us enslaved. As the Council ships departed from Earth's solar system, they carried news that would spread across the galaxy. Humanity had not just won a war, they had changed the nature of galactic civilization itself. The strong could no longer prey on the weak. Military advisors were spreading human tactical knowledge to dozens of species. New alliances were forming based on mutual defense rather than conquest. Captain Martinez, now Admiral Martinez, stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the alien ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. Well, that's done. We're officially part of galactic civilization. On our terms, his communications officer, Lieutenant Roberts, added with satisfaction. The best kind, Martinez agreed. Send a message to all commands. The war is over. We won. Across human space, celebrations began. Humanity had faced its first test as a galactic species and passed with distinction. They had proven that intelligence could defeat strength, that determination could overcome superior technology, and that humans, when pushed to the wall, became very dangerous indeed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that had spent its entire evolution fighting for survival. The Council had expected to find another client race. Instead, they had found humanity, and humanity was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be on humanity's terms.